Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. My name is David Sutton, and I'm here representing the International Council on Archives. I'm the chair of its section for Archives of Literature and Art. And it's my pleasure to be your chair for the next two presentations this afternoon. As a representative of literature, I'm a little bit of an interloper in this meeting. But in fact, I'm very pleased as the chair of a sister section to the Sports Archive section to be here. And in fact, in yesterday's business meetings, we discovered that there are actually quite a lot of similarities in the collecting of personal papers, whether they be in sport or in literature. And this afternoon's session is essentially going to be about different aspects of the issue of preserving the record. And our two speakers will have very different approaches and very different interests, but preserving the record is I think, the theme for this afternoon. So our first speaker is Imma Pedemonte, who's a graduate in information sciences from the Autonomous University of Barcelona and a sports journalist with many years of experience. In fact, a pioneer as a woman sports journalist here. She began as a writer for the newspaper Dicen, where she had her own section called La Chica del Dicen, in which she wrote mainly about football and roller hockey. During this time, between 1978 and 1983, she also wrote for Todo Sport and Patin Sport magazines, for which she was editor for a brief period. And in 1983, she also organised activities with the sports editorial staff of Catalunya Radio. In November of that same year, she joined TV3 to work there exclusively. She's also worked in Televisió de Catalunya, still in the sports department, and she reported on the Seoul Olympic Games in 1988, and then the Barcelona Games in 1992, and did the broadcasts of roller hockey games. She's also presented and edited the sports section of the lunchtime, evening, and weekend news bulletins, as well as other sports programs such as Gol a Gol, Tot l'Esport, Gol a Gol Español, and for 16 years, Zona de Bol. In March 2018, very deservedly, she received the Edelmira Calveto Award, which is a distinction promoted by Barcelona Football Club in recognition of the group of pioneering women in sports journalism. She's going to speak to us now about the importance of keeping TV images, how times have changed. Imma.
Thank you very much for this nice presentation.
Good afternoon to one and all. To hear that I've been working for so long, in fact I've been 35 years in the Catalan television, is quite of a shock really. But I'd like to share my experience with you. And now you can hear me better, can't you? The microphone is working better. That's good. Anyway, as I was saying, on November the 15th, it'll be 35 years since I've been working in the Catalan television. It's quite shocking, but it's good to be able to share this experience. When I was asked to participate in this meeting, in this seminar, I thought at first that they had made a mistake. That's why we have an interrogation mark next to my name, because I thought there is a wonderful documentation department at the Catalan television, TV3, with fantastic professionals, and any of them, and there are more women than men working in this dark, could explain better than me how the archives work in TV3 and how we have been preserving this information for 35 years. In fact, we have here Mrs. Reyes and Mrs. Valle, who can clarify any doubts, any specific doubts that we may have with regard to the archives in the Catalan television. But it's also true that the reporters and the TV anchors have been very important for, well, the archives have been very important to access all this information. And this is where I also have a role as a reporter, as a sports reporter, and I've been working at TV3 since 1973, since it was founded. And to keep things is very important, to preserve everything that has occurred. And this is what I will talk about in my presentation. And if I hadn't saved all my memories since I started to work as a sports journalist, I wouldn't have been able to present myself here today. First of all, we have this period between 1983 and 2018, the 35 years of the Catalan television. And I'd like to show you here my ID card. It's just a joke. It is an ID, it is an actual ID of the Real Madrid Football Club. It is a joke because my age is not a secret, because if you calculate that I was 25 when I started working at the Catalan television and it was founded in 1983, you can more or less calculate my age, can't you? But this ID is not an actual ID, it's a fake ID that a program created for me so I could participate in a Christmas program with actors such as Jordi Sanchez and Jaume Figueras, for example, a cinema expert. And I have to say that Tomás Molina, who was always there, who's the first weatherman in the Catalan television, he was participating in this program where we all had to explain a story. If it was a credible story, you would last longer in the program. I didn't last much longer than Tomás Molina, who was the first one to be expelled, because when I showed my ID, nobody believed it. I had explained that my grandfather was from Madrid, and I became a member of the Madrid Football Club as a child, and right now, as I don't live in Madrid, I rent my seat at the Madrid Stadium, and therefore the ID was a real ID. Anyway, it was just a story that I made up, and nobody bought it. Anyway, now let's continue. During the first years of my life as a journalist, I had a special role and a unique role, because firstly I started writing at the newspaper Dicen. I started there in 1978, and in that sports newspaper I was the only female journalist, so they would pamper me a lot and they would take great care of me, and they gave me this wonderful section that was called La Chica del Dicen, which is the girl at Dicen, and it was really nice to have my own section in the newspaper, and I was very young back then, so anyway, it was very important to me. And in my section I had interviews to footballers, basketball players, sports managers and other professionals, and I don't remember any special names, but it's true that for some time the newspaper had these huge pages. It was a very, very big newspaper, and I would just have to write pages and pages and pages so that I could fill up that section. It was a never-ending interview, but that meant that I could talk about many different topics with the people I interviewed. I interviewed not just sports facts, but also we would talk about their personal lives. And the archive of this newspaper, Dicen, is now in private hands, and I have kept many of the newspapers of those 5 years I was working there, and I keep them maybe not in the best of conditions, but I really love reading them now and then. It's great fun. But if you needed to have access to this archive, you would have to contact this family, who is now the owner of this archive. But it's not just a question of looking at pictures in this presentation, because I like to explain more about my job as a journalist. And everybody loves to look at old photos because the fashions change and the appearance as well. And I have changed a lot. My appearance has changed a lot. And I remember I used to be very bold, and I used to be a bit of a trendsetter. And we will soon see my first news program. That was in November 1984, and I had learned to do television, and we were all coming from other media, and I started working with Luis Humaro, who died too young in 1990 of a car accident while they were recording a program on the reunification of Germany. And now let's go to January 1984. We don't have any sound?
Difícil. Si no ho sentim...
We can't hear it. We won't be able to see what's interesting about it. The music is good. Let's go backwards. Let's rewind. Let's start again. Let's start again. 1984. Imma Pedemonte. Good evening. Good evening. Today we're going to be talking about athletics, about Carl Lewis, who's collecting records. Today he has broken a record of jumping, and he has achieved this record in New York. And with this jump of 879 meters, he has improved his old record that he had in June. Carl Lewis is one of the most complete athletes, and Lewis has done this wonderful long jump because Larry Mirex had reached a record of 839, and Bob Damon had his record of 890 from the Mexico Olympic Games. And now Ivan Lendl will be playing the next final in Philadelphia, tennis final. Not bad. Let me explain how we used to do things back then. We didn't have any images, so we just told the story, and you have heard me for all these minutes telling you about this record of long jump. My voice was softer than it is now, much softer, and I felt really overwhelmed very often by my responsibility, and my big glasses have been often commented upon. And I had this sweater where, now in the Catalan television they have a specific dress code, but back then you just wore what you wanted. And this was a breaking news, and we didn't have any images, and I spent a lot of time telling this big piece of news, this scoop. Now, that was my first newsreel. Now, this is the second one. Imma Pedemonte, good evening. we seem to have problems in Sarajevo. It's true, in Sarajevo there are many problems with the weather because of the strong winds and the snow, and this is affecting the visibility. And this is altering the program. And then that was the 11th of February 1984, and it was still cold, and the cold weather was the main topic, and Luis, my partner in the news bulletin, was wonderful, but he wasn't used to the TV cameras. And when camera 2 was recording, he would look at camera 3. Well, anyway, we used to have problems. We weren't looking at first at the right camera, so that's what happens in live television. But that's how things started in the Catalan television. We were all starting from scratch. So this was the past. And now we're going to make a leap of 30-something years. And we're going to look at some images from a few months ago. So you see the difference between this sports journalism that was so naive at first and to the sports journalism that we see today. Because they were in this news, they referred to a wonderful racer, Marc Márquez. He has been chosen as the best Catalan sportsman of the year. How are you, Marc? How was 2017 for you? You've had this 4th motorcycling title. Well, it's great. It's wonderful to have this kind of acknowledgements and prizes, because this is a very important prize in our country. And of course, all of us in our sports try always to do our best, and we all deserve this prize. We all work really hard to perform our best, and this is the 2nd prize I have received, and I'm very, very happy. Marc Márquez is always very friendly. He was happy because he was the star of the day. Maybe at another moment he wouldn't be so friendly, although that would be unusual because he's usually, as I say, very friendly. And sports archives also remind us of a tennis player who never likes to hear that a match has been easy, even if he wins 6-0 or 6-4. Congratulations, Rafa. Today's match has been very different. You've been quick. Well, yes, but you have to think that we're always playing against the best players in the world. 6-4 is a standard result. It's not a problem because the first set was very difficult, but it's always difficult. And we know that Rafa is not always the friendliest of people. That day he had been playing the semi-finals of the Godó game, and to have him in Barcelona every year for this tournament, for this tennis tournament, is absolutely wonderful, and he usually wins. However, the archives are very wise and also reveal some aspects of myself, a journalist who did other kinds of sport. Life is a ball. For the first time in Cambrils, we have this very interesting ballroom dancing tournament, something very new in this country. And here we have this couple from Madrid, David Rodriguez and Cristina Mañas, and they're really, really good. And this is the first test. Then they have 2 more tests, and then the big final. The question would be, is ballroom dancing a sport or not? Because that's what we were recording in these programs. I remember back then when the head of sports told me that I had to be working there as a journalist, I didn't really know how to feel. I have to admit that I was a bit offended. I didn't consider ballroom dancing as a sport. And my friends would also say, but is that a sport? Should you be really doing that? And I felt that it was like doing something minor compared to all the things I had been doing, a reporter in all kinds of sports, hockey and so on and so forth. However, after some time, I understood that I had gained a new family because I spent 16 years with them. This program ended last year in 2017. And those of you who love television, maybe there is a face that sounds familiar to you. Apart from this couple that is about to compete and myself, I'll give you a second chance so that you pay attention. Look at the technical expert who was also in the program and who always had the most original look, this commentator. Today we are in Salo. We have this musical show and we are going to have this show dance, junior show dance, and here we have some of the characters that will be sharing the program with us. It's not at all easy to organize all these people, it's true, but they have so much fun and we have so much fun with them. It's really worth it. We're going to see all these youngsters in action. I don't know whether you have recognized the commentator. That's Isabel Perez, who was a jury in the Spanish television, together with Joaquín Cortés in a program that is about ballroom dancing with celebrities. And, well, we had this program that became very popular.
So why is Imma Pedemonte telling us all of this? So this is like the practical application of what we have been telling you. If we didn't have this department, the archive department, I couldn't tell you about my career. And so it's obvious that I keep some things, as I told you, like newspapers and hundreds of minutes I have in reels or my interventions on TV in all kind of formats that I will have to unify someday, because I can watch them. Today they are there as witness. And but private archive that is very, very valuable to me. So I will have to unify soon. And I just wanted to show you live and to bring to this table, and well, if you can also touch it, the different formats we've had on TV to store images. Technology keeps changing. We buy a computer and it's obsolete after 6 months. There's another beautiful, and TVs which were huge before, now they are flat. Telephones, they are very thin, and lights, so everything has changed quite a lot. And therefore the way of storing our images has also changed. Now everything is more streamlined, cleaner and smaller especially. So at the beginning we kept images in this format. It's very heavy, quite heavy. They are in inches. This is the pure style of movie reel. It weighs 4 kilos. and it takes up quite a lot of room, so this couldn't last. The next steps, we go to the 3/4 tape. We can compare, which is quite a difference. It was not very comfortable because you had to carry it in a metroscope. It was kind of difficult as well. But at least we were just gaining a lot of space. And from there we go to the Betacam tape, which again we are reducing size, and the capacity was higher. But for journalists it was cumbersome as well. For instance, when you had to play a video, you have to, well, shoot a video remembering all the goals by whatever football player. So you went to the archives, and with like a basket, it was like going shopping almost, because you took your basket, they filled your basket with tape like this, and then if someone took one from you, and then it was on your name, and for months they were like tracing you unless the tape was located again. So we were kind of moving forward, but it was not like the definite time. And then we get to the smaller support, which is the tape. Here it is, the small tape. It's small, and well, it has quite a big capacity. It's called T10,000, and you can have 10 hours in HD, high definition, 8.5 terabytes, I think this is the name. And these tapes are inside two robots that are the ones that select these tapes. I haven't brought a picture of the robots because you see like a closet, and if you get close to them through the small dots, you distinguish the arm that picks a tape of this every time someone selects something. But I just forgot to show you something. Yeah, the different formats. Yeah, this is where you can see them. Inches, 3/4 Betacam tape, and T10,000 tape that is inside these two robots that choose the tapes. And the robot takes up a room, well, two rooms in fact, because there are two robots, one for each building in TV3, and then a robot. And well, now we're going to start with figures in order to understand what you can have inside. A robot has a capacity of 4,000 tapes and the other of 6,000 tapes. I have to tell you that these information from the robots are doubled just in case they disappeared, all the information disappeared. The total capacity of the two digital robots is 1,673,000 hours in HD, high definition. So these figures are quite astonishing for quite a young television as TV3, which was born in 1984, with some broadcasting before that time. So out of these 1,673,000 something, sports take up a total of about 86,000 hours in HD, a lot of soccer, and then a small part of this zona de ball, 500 hours. Everything, all the images are well kept, well stored in these robots. And at the end of the 70s and beginning of the 80s, when I was working at the sports magazine, which had a treasure of paper, we didn't have Google then. So Mr. Google, who's so useful nowadays, didn't exist. So journalists had to rely on his or her memory. There were people who had very good memory, or from paper archives. And the best archive was the one who could offer the best information. For instance, if Barca went into a draw with a European team, and yeah, for instance, it was like the Malta champion, and the person who had, or the institution that had the best documents in paper, who was in a better position to analyze this opponent. So with every press scraps, etc., and that was the person who was best informed. And we have talked about before, when all the sports journalists went to the archive to get with our baskets to get our tape, a video that years before was edited by an editor. There was a specialist who helped editing that piece. The editor was the one who knew. And times have also changed. Editors continue to exist, of course, but now they have a much more accurate job for making more elaborate pieces with music, with letters, with text, etc. More elaborate, with effects and with computers to which journalists don't have access to. It would be too complex technology for us. What has changed is the way of working for journalists, for sport journalists in our daily job. We are the ones who edit the most basic videos, the ones you see at the TV news, the video of Barca, of Real Madrid, all of that. Everything which is not so elaborate, that has an music and effect, all the rest is made by sports journalists. We have had to recycle ourselves before the editor edited, and we told him or her what he or she had to include, but now we choose what we want to include, and at some time we have we make some overlapping, and we add some audio. We have learned quite a lot, really. At the sport club and the Club de la Mitjanit, they rely more on editors, and they make more elaborate pieces, as I was saying. So when we get to the computer, then we have two options for searching. When searching images, we have the most recent ones, which are in production at the computer, which is the last year of images, and then we have the video archive, where we have all the series of images from the beginning of times of our TV. So what we do is to have several keywords at the computer. If we said Messi, for instance, we will have too much. So what do we want from Messi? Goals. Only the ones in Europe. Well, Messi, goals, champions. And with these keywords, we end up finding the images we are looking for at this program that is called Digition. And then we use the Natural News, which is the program we have at TV3 for making this editing, the more simple editing. The same computer, we can also include the voice. And then on that table, we can do the same, editing, adding voice, editing the video, and finishing it off. We also have a specific room if we want the voice to be more clear. So we have a specific room where we can add the voice in a more quiet surrounding and with a higher quality. So with time, you see that we've had to learn a lot. Now journalists do everything, editing. The last thing, some people have also are more skilled for recording images, but it's not that what we usually do. And then what we also do is, even when we give information about a match, we write an account of it. The other day I was the Manchester United versus Valencia, so you have to have for the 324 for the other news channel, because we can't always broadcast. And then we have to write a Word document to post it on the web page. So we are really multitasking sometimes. I would say that we do too many things. So technology has advanced, and we have had to advance with it. We have had to adapt to times, and even if at the beginning editing a video was a problem, now we are more skilled. I wanted to make an overview of sports on TV3. It's a bit small, but I will tell you quickly. The sports at TV3 I remind you that at the beginning there wasn't a regular broadcast, and at 83 there were like sport broadcasts, and some particular day, the first one was on that first broadcasting experiment, the 10th September 1983, Barça versus Osasuna. Barcelona won 1-0, so it was quite good. And then Josep Maria Casanovas and Carles Reixac were the journalists. In November, there was another broadcast, not so experimental one, again from the Camp Nou, which has been like the big setting, and on that time it was made by Eduard Buet, Josep Sánchez and Salvador Sadurní. And before the end of 1983 there was another, the Espanyol versus Barça, from the Sarrià Stadium, which has already disappeared, and was made by Isabel Bosch and Daniel Solsona also as a commentator. So these three matches were broadcasted before the actual start of TV3, and we really started on a general sports program was in 1984, presented or conducted by Eduard Buet. There were interviews, etc., but it also had, sport materials or equipment like a motorcycle or bicycle, sports equipment from guests. We even had at that set a Formula One car. So we did quite a bit surprising thing when we wanted to be innovative. And what also started very soon was the program Goal a Goal, which was like the summary of Sunday's football day, and it was presented conducted by Eduard Berraondo. And here I have to tell you about images where really some human lives were at stake, but it's not a joke. I mean, I didn't leave it closely because at that time I was doing some other job, but my colleagues really lived every weekend, and it was terrible because in order to get on time to Goal a Goal with the tapes to go to the editorial office, the first 2 years they went with light craft, the journalists, and sometimes we had 3 cameramen and 1 journalist to cover 3 different matches. So the light craft stopped in Valencia, a camera and a journalist was left there, continued to Seville, and then there was another journalist and another cameraman, and then it took off again and went to Cadiz for, downloading, like the last cameraman and the last journalist, because there were no satellites at the time, and that's how it had to be done. So we had the images because we were actually there recording them. So everything was very complicated, and this operation, and the same for going back to the TV, from Cadiz then to Seville, then to Valencia, picking up all these people, and then back to TV3. So the editor was like editing the images. They put on some makeup and off to the set, and to start talking about some images that had been edited by someone else. Another way of getting tapes to the TV set was by giving them at the exit of a stadium of some fans who were going to go back to Barcelona by plane. But now just imagine that you are given a package with tapes. I mean, these were different times, and we had the complicity of these people who knew about our existence, and they also wanted to help us in our impossible missions. And then the fans arrived in Barcelona with the tape. Then there was a biker that waiting with his or her name he was given the tapes, and he would run or to the TV, and then the images were edited and were broadcasted. Now it seems that we're talking about prehistory, but then we had the territorial branches after a couple of years, and then the images could be sent from these territorial branches from the mobile units. So every weekend was an adventure, and if the match was special and if had an interest beyond the interest of the match itself, the thing was even worse. There was a Valladolid-Barça where the league was to be decided, and then the journalists went to Valladolid with a normal scheduled flight, but for going back, there was an odyssey for coming back. He took a helicopter outside the Valladolid stadium. The helicopter took him to Madrid, and then he took a private jet to Barcelona. Otherwise, he wouldn't get there. And the league had been decided on that match. So the images had to get to Barcelona at whatever price. So the rights, also, which is also complex, they were utopia. And if you wanted images, you had to go there and record them and go back home. So it goes without saying that this system of light crafts, helicopters, motorbikers was really expensive, but it was the only way to be able to cover it and then to show it to the spectators at the Goal a Goal program. The advantage of that time was that all matches they were played at 5 on Sunday. So all matches were played at the same time. And now the Carrusel Deportivo TVs have made them play one after the other in order to have everything well disseminated and having more customers to reach. So we've talked about Goal a Goal, which exists. This program, it's one of the surviving programs conducted by Xavier Valls. There has also been Temps d'Aneu, that was born in 1986 and is still on. Also the summaries of the Paris-Dakar, Olympics en Acció, Motorafons. It started in 98, Thalassa program, those Mediterranean programs. And if we talk about the Tota Sport together with Goal a Goal, I have this photograph here because this was a case that is very vivid in my memory throughout these years. Guruzeta was a referee who had at that time, if a referee didn't do the right job, they could reject him. So this is what happened with him and Barça. Guruzeta couldn't act as a referee in a Barça match. So they said, we don't want him any longer. And I was carrying out some interviews where we had the name, the director seats, and we had a Tota Sport, the name of the program, and they would take the chair as a kind of souvenir. It was something we gave to them. So Guruzeta, we did it at this park that is outside Barcelona, next to Sant Joan de Déu, where there are so many roses. Yes, this Cervantes Park. So from this point of this Cervantes Park, we could see the Camp Nou in the background. Well, this is what we were interested in talking about. So we talked about Barça, many things. And then, the interview, was the 24th of February 1987, and the day after, when he was going back home, he died in the car. And in the car that was destroyed, we could see this chair. And this was this had quite an impact to everyone because we had interviewed him the day before, and when we broadcasted it, he had already died, and with all his controversy around him. So apart from the Guru Zeta case, then the Channel 33 was born, and it was a very important step for everyone.
It was very important for the sports department. Almost the whole department went to this new channel, the Canal 33 channel. We had every Saturday we were reporting on a TV match, and there were other programs also available. Maybe you can see the name of the programs on the slide: Basket Matías, Sports 33. These were sports information programs that were broadcast before and after the news on the weekends, and also in the intervals of the matches. And then 1992 arrived. That was the year of the Olympic Games in Barcelona, and there was a program called Compte Enrere Barcelona 92, which is the countdown of Barcelona 1992 that explained what was going on in the city before the Olympic Games. And then we had a new program created for the Olympic Games. TV3, the Catalan television, and the Spanish television were working together to cover the Olympic Games worldwide, and they used a common channel that was called the Olympic Channel, Canal Olympic. Both televisions were working hand in hand. We were all there together in the same facilities. Canal Olympic was done in Catalan, and it was broadcasting 24 hours a day. And I have to say that those days in July 1992, I had one of the worst shifts from 5 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock midday. And I was expecting twins, and nobody knew, because I didn't want anybody to think that I was complaining about anything. So I didn't sleep much those days. But the good thing was, however, that as I finished at 12 midday, then I was able to go to many of the competitions. I didn't just report on them, but I was able to go there as an spectator. And TV3, the Catalan television, has all the images, of course, of the 1992 Olympic Games in Barcelona. But there is a problem, the problem of rights, the sports rights. This is an old picture that we took at the very beginning of the channel. Here you see Isabel, Enrique López Vilalta, myself, Eduard Berraondo, Arcadi Alives, and Luis Canut. We are all looking quite young, aren't we? And we're all dressed up in different sports outfits. I used to play hockey, Eduard used to play American football, Eduard used to play golf, Arcadi has run all the marathons in the world apart from working with us, and Luis Canut was also a very important part of the department. This is quite an illustrative image. It has nothing to do with sports rights, but as we were talking about rights in general, I thought it would be interesting to look backwards into these images, such funny images as this one. And the International Olympic Committee is the owner of those images, and those images cannot be used without paying the relevant rights. And we're talking about 20 to 28,000 euros per minute. To show images of Barcelona 92 is impossible. It's really expensive. At the 20th anniversary of the Barcelona Olympic Games, there was a special program created, and that was thanks to a special agreement with the International Olympic Committee. And we were lucky to be able to do that program, a 1-hour program to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Barcelona Olympic Games. And except for that program, if we want to use any of those images, we have to pay between 20 and 28,000 euros per minute. But it's not just the Olympic images that we cannot use. For example, images of Wimbledon, of tennis matches, of Roland Garros. And today, for example, with the Football League, we cannot use those images. Only for the relevant time. Imagine, for example, that there are matches next weekend, and we can use those images during the following week. So it's for 1 week, but no more than that. You may use them during the following week within a report, but if not, it wouldn't be possible. If not, we wouldn't be able to show any of the goals. For example, when we want to go over Messi's goals, for example, throughout the league, if he has scored 5 goals, well, you have to show that as a special documentary in a way to be able to show them. It's really very difficult. And this is a tough year for us because it's the first year we haven't had the Champions League, and we had all the rights in all these seasons. We were really happy to have those rights, and now we can only show 90 seconds of each match, and only twice. We can show it on the same evening and the following day. And usually we show it at midnight, and then when we have the first or the last news bulletin of the day, and then on the following day. So it's just twice, but during the best hours. And if not, we can only show photographs, that's all. The problem today is that everything has a price, and the Catalan television doesn't have access to these expensive images. You know how the pay-per-view channels have been acquiring the rights of many sports events such as the Euro League, the Formula 1 Championship, tennis, football. They have it all. They have so much money that nobody can compete against them. When there is a tender, so as to say, or an auction, then the Catalan television has nothing to do. It's the private television that has all the money. And in fact, the TV3 Catalan television has decrease in budget every year. There has been a big difference. There's a big difference between what's available today and what was available in the past. But all this ended in 2008, 2009. In September 2010, Sport 3, the sports channel, was born. This was an important moment. Today it combines sports programs with live interviews, and it's completed with cultural information as well, because we don't have enough information, sports information, for a 24-hour channel. So we also include some cuisine documentaries, travel documentaries. And due to the financial crisis, this channel Sport 3 has undergone some difficult times, and it has been threatened with being closed down. But we are the same people working at all the channels. So if they closed down this channel, they weren't really saving that much money. And in 2002, we start to hear about TDT. That's the end of analog videotapes were about to disappear. And in 2003, the Catalan television starts with a digitalization process. Before, we had 2,000 programs that were recorded on tapes, and we have now this digitalization process that lasted for 3 years, and it's in 2006 when all the analogic tapes and digital tapes disappeared, and all the TV programs ended up being preserved in this digital robot. So all those tapes are now inside this robot, and now the tapes are history. They've been history for 12 years. And luckily, TV3 was born in 1983, so it has a digital archive of its whole history. The Spanish television, however, didn't keep any images of its first years, and it's a pity we don't have any images of the 1950s and 1960s of the Spanish television. It wasn't until later that they realized how important it is to preserve these images. And now they have special archives, and they have programs that look at the history of television and the very popular programs, and they also have programs with different sports families, and they have all these images because they started 30 years before we did. And to look at all images is always very popular. Everybody likes looking at the images from the past. Everybody likes them. And that's why today at TV3 there'll be a new program that is being conducted by people from my department, of the sports department. It's a scoop for you here today, and the program's name will be No tenim vergonya, We Have No Shame. And it'll be a combination of different images from the history of our television, and we'll be sharing all these images, and in this way we'll see how fashion changes, how trends change, how life changes. And in this program you'll see maybe some of the images I showed you at the beginning of my presentation of my look in the 1980s with my huge glasses, my hiking jumper, and my special hairstyle. And the name of the program is We Have No Shame, because we all feel very proud of what we've done and what we'll do in the future. Thank you.